Alright, so now I think we should help some of the modeling here, because if we go and look through the camera during the animation, we never get to see the upper plane of this object, and I think that in return makes the animation a little harder to read. So these are kind of very small finishing touches, but I think they go a long way in helping with the read of the scene. Because even if we light this cylinder really well, we just won't see it. So we need this plane to stand out just a little bit so we can get a good read at it. So because this is nerves, the easiest way I can think of deforming it is actually using a bend, and then you see how even just getting this tiny little edge goes a long way. Let me see if I need to show the deformer. Texture strokes, motion trail, let me show. Right, so let me rotate this. Okay, so hopefully this doesn't break the animation. You see, that goes a long way. Without seeing that plane, we wouldn't have been able to understand what shape that is. And I'm actually gonna do the same exact thing on these objects. So control base, I'm gonna create another deformer. So create another band, and I'm gonna bend this one too, so that we get a little bit of wackiness in it. So it's not perfect. Okay? Once we have these three planes, it's gonna be a lot easier to light it. Same thing for this one. I'm gonna create a band for this one too. Ideally, it would be better if those elements had more vertices and already had some kind of information change, but it's gonna be okay. So again, I'm rotating it now so I can get this plane to read. Also, it's important that these planes are not in a tangent, so that's also something that I'm concerned about. Okay, now these planes are also too straight, but for those, since those are simple planes, I actually might be able to simply, let me use a bend deformer too, because these two planes are touching. Actually, before I do that, I might actually want to go ahead and duplicate this one, because I have a feeling that we probably will want to add a little bit more interest. So I'm actually gonna duplicate this and move it down here, move it forward just a touch, and then scale it. And rotate it slightly, just so we can make this look a little bit more lively. And I'm probably gonna assign a different texture on this one too. And then this item, I'm actually probably gonna do the same. I'm gonna take that, and this is actually weird that I'm not seeing the material for that anymore. Oh boy, the joys of Maya. So let me rotate this. Let me see if I can reset the rotation on this guy. Okay, so hopefully this works out. And again, I'm gonna scale it, rotate it, and I'm gonna rotate it and place it down, just so we can add a little bit extra interest to the image, you know? We're probably gonna have to make some new textures and assign them for this to look okay. And I have a feeling that we probably might want to change this and move this a little bit. A little bit down. Actually, let's see what happens if we take all of those and move them to the right. I wonder if this is gonna be too much of a dramatic change. Yeah, I think the texture here isn't really collaborating with us. Probably gonna go to the texture and make sure that the image is not repeating. So 1.1, so it's vertical. 1.1. Oh, I guess it's rotated, huh? Crap. It's rotated. Oh boy. Oh, never mind. This is way too complicated, which is ridiculous. It shouldn't be. I guess no one will notice if I do that, right? I'm just gonna move it up because it's, oh boy. Let's see what this looks like. Yeah, I actually feel like, what material do you have? Right wall. I'm just gonna assign the same material because the text is kind of distracting anyway. So at this point, we might as well not having to deal with retexturing that wall. It's all good. Okay. And it's nice that we're getting some shadows from these. So I actually might want to push those further a little bit so we can get some of those shadows too. Let's see how far they are. They're not even that far. Actually, yeah, cool. Okay, so I'll just push those out a little bit. I'll just take this wall, move it back just a touch, and then take those and move them just a touch, so we can get a little bit of shadows. I think you can get a little bigger. Okay. And maybe we can use another one of you here. So now let's see how we can probably retexture some of those. I do like those shadows though. They're getting a little messy, but we can easily fix it. It's probably this light, right? Key set. That's probably what's causing these shadows. Yeah, because now they're getting a little sharper. Yeah. If you wanted to get them to still be soft, you can filter it. The viewport might get a little cranky when you filter too much. Because it's trying to do that in real time. Well, let's see how that looks like. Alright, cool. So let's just now redo these textures. I think I might have some of those in the source images. Let's take a look at what we have. Yeah, so we already have a bunch of charts, so it shouldn't be difficult to easily replace them. So let's see what material this is. Wallpaper texture. Right, wallpaper texture. Cool, so I'm gonna just take this material, duplicate, shading network. So this will create a second material. So I will just take you and take you, and I'm gonna assign this new material. And then for the texture, rather than using figure 4, I'll have this one. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing and duplicate shading network, and I'm going to assign it to you and you, and this is going to be some other picture like this one, and let's see how this looks like. Alright, so I think these two are a little too similar, so I'll duplicate this one more time. Duplicate shading network, and I'm gonna assign it to you, and the texture will be this last one. Alright, so now something cool that we can do to try and get these textures to look a little bit more interesting, like what we wanted to do in the paint over, is add a transparency map. So what we will do is select all of those, and then they're all kind of like stretched shapes, right? So if you look at the texture, that's stretched too. So let's do the same thing. Let's create a new texture, and let's make it height of let's do 600. So it's gonna be stretchy. And then why don't we kind of eat out some of those edges, so we can add a little bit of imperfection, break some of those really perfect edges. Okay, so we're gonna take those and make it black, and then we're gonna export these as poster alpha. Alright, and now we're gonna go into any of those, and rather than using this image for the transparency, I'm gonna actually duplicate it, point it to the alpha, Okay, and use that for transparency, use that for transparency, use that for transparency, transparency. Okay, and let's see what happens. Right, so you see how we're getting some interesting details now. And it didn't take very long. And now we suddenly have a drastically more interesting image that feels a lot less CG and a little bit more realistic. Now I think these now feel a little floaty, to be honest, though. So I think it would help if there wasn't as much distance, particularly these two. I think these are fine. Something else cool we could try to do is try to bend them a little bit so that they would catch light a little differently. And it would be cool if they were a little reflective too. So let's see what happens if we make those a little bit reflective. Let's change all the types for those two blinds. As much as possible, I like for the materials that I use to have interesting properties. So now we probably have to use this texture for the color game, for the specular, because the specular will not respect the transparency by default. But let's see what we get right off the bat. So right off the bat, we are not getting a much different result. We're getting some interesting gradients actually, which is nice, but now that's going through. So I think we might have gone too far. Yeah, I don't think any of those materials should be reflective, but I do like the specularity that they're catching from the lights. But you see how it's not being respected? So we need to go and use this as a specular too, for specular color. So now they may be a little too shiny, but the alpha will be respected. Okay. Right, so you see how we went from an image that was pretty difficult to read to an image that hopefully is a little easier. Although that I didn't notice. What is that? What's happening here? I think this is probably being bent a little bit too much. Okay. I think the tangent here is kind of annoying, so I might actually want to move this whole thing down a notch, just so that they're not in a perfect tangent like that. Yeah, so that they separate. And I think we pretty much have something decent going on. So at this point I think we can start worrying about the finishing touches. So I might actually start going in different frames, test how the lighting is doing. It seems like for the most part it's holding up. So at this point we can actually probably start worrying about very, very small details. Like we might want to have a little bit more bounce on this particular sphere. So what I will do is create a light, and it can be any light, but I tend to like spotlights just because they're easy to see in position. Okay, it's taking a little bit to catch up, and I'm gonna call this sphere bounce. And what this light will do, it will be responsible for some of the bounce that we should get on this sphere from below. And it should be pretty subtle. And I actually won't really care about anything other than this area over here. Okay. Okay. And it doesn't really need any decay, and I'm gonna actually break light links. Actually, I'm gonna set it to not illuminate by default, and I'm gonna make light links specifically with these objects. And maybe even the sphere here, maybe even that. Okay, so let's see what this does. It doesn't seem like it's doing anything, is it? Yeah, I don't think so. So let's see what's up. So let's select the objects it's illuminated. Right, so I think we made a mistake. We probably just need to select those by hand rather than selecting the individual groups, which is an annoying thing about nerds. And same thing here, we want to select the individual elements. And then we can make light links. And let's try this again. Let's select the light. And let's select the objects illuminated. Oh boy, something is off, isn't it? Let's see if we turn this on by default. And then break the light links with that. Maybe that will be easier. Let's see if that works. Okay, so that seems to work. So now we're getting some nice bounce that is lifting these blacks. So I'm probably gonna actually move it so it's not perfectly frontal, and I'm gonna move it somewhere over here so that the bounce is more from screen left, so we can lift some of those blacks. And I'm gonna change the color so it's a little warmer, and the intensity set to something like 0.25. So pretty dim, but hopefully should help making the set feel a little bit more natural. So I think it's helping. It's not really reaching all the way over there though. I might need to make the range, the cone angle a little bigger. So let's make this 20. Let's see if that helps. Getting that flex to lift a little bit. Okay, so we might we may want to leave it for now. That might be as far as we can go without overdoing the lighting. So at this point, we can call the lighting done. Depending on how you feel about the mood, you may want to set the ambient light to be a little dimmer, so you can get a little bit more of a dramatic lighting scenario. You see? Or you might actually want to brighten it. I think this is entirely up to you. I actually like these reflections. I think they're a really nice touch. Yeah, so I'm probably gonna call this a day for the lighting, and then next I'll go over some of the ID mats that I'll use to aid in the compositing portion of the demo. One last thing, I probably want to add a little bit more bounce, because I feel like that could be a little brighter. But I think that will be it. Yeah, that's it. The end.